Last week, the global crypto market value reached 4 trillion for the first time. Just for context, that's the same as the market cap for Nvidia. And all this happened as the US passed the Genius Act, which is the country's first major crypto legislation. This week, I'm very happy to be joined by Dean Cook, who's a portfolio manager on our multi-asset funds. He's going to give his insights on what the Genius Act is, what the potential impact is, and how markets have reacted so far. So, thanks, Dean, for joining us. I guess first things first, what is the Genius Act? And why do people think it's going to be a big deal?
Thanks, Luke. So the Genius Act is the first big piece of US legislation to set some clear rules for stablecoins. These are basically digital tokens that are tied to real-world currencies like the US dollar. Two well-known examples are Tether and USDC. So this new law says that these coins have to be backed by safe assets like cash or government bonds. And it also brings in rules around things like financial reporting and anti-money laundering. It's a pretty big moment because it gives the industry some much needed clarity. To give you a sense of scale, stable coins are already worth over $250 billion, and Citigroup forecasts that that number is going to grow to 1.6 trillion by 2030.
Okay, so it sounds like from that, it could make stablecoins look more legitimate in the eyes of mainstream finance. But then how does the US actually benefit from this act?
Yeah, well, I guess one reason that the Genius Act matters is that it could help keep the demand for the US dollar strong on a global basis. So effectively, by setting clear rules for dollar-backed stablecoins, so basically digital dollars, the US is making it easier for people and businesses around the world to use the US dollar in online payments. So that could potentially boost its role in international trade. There's also a financial benefit. So the US has a large interest bill on its borrowings, about $1 trillion a year. And since stablecoins are usually backed by short-term government bonds, more use could therefore mean more demand for those bonds and commensurately a lower cost to do so. So for context, Tether, which is the biggest stablecoin, as mentioned earlier, already holds more US treasuries than all German investors combined. So if stablecoins keep growing, it could help the US borrow more cheaply.
Fair enough. That Tether stat is unbelievable. So it seems like the benefits are clear, but then are there any risks that we should be watching out for?
One thing that people are watching pretty closely is how this might affect the wider financial system. So if stablecoins become really popular, people might start moving money out of traditional banks and into digital alternatives. And that might make it harder for banks to lend, especially during tougher times. There's also some concern that stablecoin companies could end up acting like banks, but without having to follow the same rules that keep deposits safe. And on a global front, the US is backing what's called a private stablecoin, so issued by private entities, whilst places like the EU and China are going with government-issued digital currencies, so a bit of a nuance there. But that split could make it harder down the line to coordinate things like international payments and regulation.
Okay, fair enough. So there are some risks, but regardless, it seems like crypto's rallied, just in the light of this act being passed. Can you tell us exactly what's happened in markets since then?
Sure, yeah. So the market response has been pretty dramatic. And as you mentioned earlier, the sort of air of legitimacy that's coming along via the Genius Act is benefiting other crypto assets. So the total market cap, as you mentioned, is jumped to $4 trillion, which is remarkable considering it was only $800 billion back in 2022. Bitcoin alone is up more than 10% this week, hitting a record high of about $123,000, whilst other coins have also rallied alongside. We've seen related equities, so equities that kind of link into the stablecoin and crypto world rally also. And the main reason behind this really seems to be that it's adding an air of legitimacy, but also providing a bit of a green light for large investors. So it's given those large investors some clarity around things that they've been waiting for. So we're already seeing some movement in that regard. JP Morgan, Citigroup, and Bank of America, amongst the large US banks, have all said that they're planning to launch their own stable coins.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. It seems like the Genius Act potentially could be the start in how seriously digital assets are being taken, especially by these big institutions. I think whether or not it's the start of a new era, it's still definitely one for us to keep an eye on. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Please join us again next week for another topic which has caught our eye.